Welcome to Get Offset. My name is Emily, and I'm here today to see if Adam Levine has a point when he says or asks, where are all the bands? So Adam Levine from Maroon 5 and The Voice, and I guess the Super Bowl, he went on record kind of wondering why there weren't more bands right now. And he's been getting just beat up a little bit for it. And a lot of other bands are responding like, I'm a band. What are you talking about? So I kind of wanted to break down like where I think Adam's coming from this, whether or not he has a point. And I'm not gonna lie, I think he might have a point. Let's get to it. Let's get down to the business of it. So when Levine, when Adam discusses why there aren't more bands, I really think he's specifically talking about bands in the cultural zeitgeist, bands that people are talking about a lot, bands that are on the radio, bands that are in the Billboard Hot 100, because to ask where are the bands is dumb. Obviously there are bands. I think a band is still the way a lot of performers like get started before they have their solo careers. A lot of young people still have bands. I'm in a band. I'm not a young person. I have a band. I'm wearing a t-shirt from a band called Yeah, Great Fine. I'm actually drinking coffee out of a Rat Boys The Band mug. And I watched last night and will watch today my favorite band, The Hold Steady, do some live stream shows. Yeah. Just released a song on a compilation today with my band Sunday Crush that another band called Susie True had put together. So, like, obviously there are bands. I think bands are kind of the basis of any, like, rock scene in any community. A lot of musical genres still very much rely on the band dynamic because especially when you're starting out, even if you're, like, the primary songwriter, the singer, etc., when you're starting out, you can't really afford to keep a band on your on the books. You know, you can't afford to pay them for every show. So a way to get around that is to kind of make it more of a collaborative project. So I still think there are a lot of bands out there. It's not a point you can make with a straight face that there just aren't any bands. But are there bands in popular music right now? Now, there are some. Let's look at the Billboard Hot 100 from 2020. All right, number 1 is The Weeknd. Is The Weeknd a band? No. Circles by Post Malone. Band? No. The Box by Roddy Ricch. I don't think that's a band. Dua Lipa, Don't Start Now. Not a band. That's actually her name. Rockstar, The Baby featuring Roddy Ricch. Not a band. Adore You, Harry Styles, formerly in a boy band. Not a band. And I also don't think he's talking about boy bands, so I'm not going to talk about BTS, just because I don't think that's what Adam was talking about. And, you know, for that matter, I guess maybe the Vamps are like a boy band that plays their instruments. Life is Good, Future featuring Drake, not a band. Memories by Maroon 5 at number 8 from last year. Bones by Maren Morris, not a band. And Someone You Loved by Louis Capaldi, not a band. So let me just keep looking down. Lots of not bands. I don't know if Tones and I, the song Dance Monkey, I don't know if that's a band. I don't know if Arizona Zebras is a band. Billie Eilish is not a band. Dan and Shay at 23. Is that a band? Is that like saying Simon and Garfunkel is a band? They're a duo, but are they a band? I don't think so. Cardi B featuring Megan Thee Stallion, not a band. Hot Girl Bummer by Black Bear. That might be a band. I don't really know. That could just be something like the week. So that's another trend that I've seen a lot more of. Not that this hasn't been around for kind of forever, but it's like one person's project and then they call it a band, like Bon Iver, or The Weeknd. They're just not using their name. And that's fine. But are you considering that a band? I don't think that's a band. So I'm just kind of looking through here for like other bands that might be like rock bands. I don't know if Josh. Oh, that's Josh. There's BTS, Roddy Ricch, Drake, Lil Baby. There's another example of I don't think a band, Biba Doobie. I think that's just one person. I don't think it's a band. Travis Scott, not a band. Billie Eilish, not a band. And then some, Black Eyed Peas. Is that a band or a collective? Also, like, that's a group that's been around for a long time. So how, like, it really serves to define, like, what is a band? Is a group or a collective different from a band? I would argue that it is. I think a band is a group of people who, like, have their role, and it's usually, like, on an instrument. I think that's kind of the key element of a band is like people playing instruments, like a drummer, a keyboard player, maybe a guitarist, maybe a bassist, maybe auxiliary percussion. Like that's what I think a band is, or like horns, that kind of thing. So part of this is kind of hard for me because like I see something that's not like a first and last name or even just a first name, and I'm not entirely sure if it's a band, a collective, or just somebody like who doesn't want to go by their own name professionally. Do you know? I don't know. Old Dominion song One Man Band at 59. Getting into some country. Yep. I love that All I Want for Christmas Is You by Mariah Carey is on this list at number 67 for the Hot 100 of the year. So that doesn't really prove anything that there aren't a lot of bands right now. I think what we really need to see is, were there a lot of bands like 10 years ago? What's fun about the Billboard Hot 100 chart, year-end chart, is you can go back. So I want to look at 2010 right now, live with you all. Well, not live. I recorded this previously. Number 1 is TikTok by Kesha, not a band. Need You Now by Lady Antebellum is a band. Also, I never want to hear that song again. I interned at a place called Skyline Music Publishing in college, and Mr. Worley, the producer of that song, would literally just sit in his office for hours listening to mixes of the song really loudly. So I've heard this song more than you, I promise. I never want to hear that song again. Hey Soul Sister by Train is a band. California Girls, Katy Perry, not a band. OMG, Usher featuring will.i.am, not a band. Airplanes, B.O.B. featuring Hayley Williams, not a band. Love the Way You Lie, Eminem featuring Rihanna, not a band. We got Lady Gaga. And we got 2 Tao Cruz songs. So really, if we look at the top 10 from this year, we have one band, Maroon 5. If we look at it from 2010, we have 2 bands, and they're in the top 3. Lady A is what I think they're trying to be called now, despite that there was that's not the time for this. And Train. No matter how you feel about those bands, they're bands for sure. If we keep scrolling down, still really, really a lot of solo stuff. Let's see, Black Eyed Peas. Again, I feel like that's kind of more of a collective than a band. A lot of Eminem. The Script, that's got to be a band. Owl City, that's not a band. I think that's just like the guy, isn't it? Let's see. Lady Gaga, not a band. Jason Derulo. Nelly. It's kind of amazing how many of these artists are still in the Hot 100 like 10 years later. Literally 10 years later. I don't know what that is. Some of these are just, I don't remember these songs, which is weird. Let's see. Oh my god, Kesha featuring 303. Is 303 a band or a collective? Isn't it just the 2 dudes? Do they play instruments? I don't know. One Republic, that's a band. Yes, still there's Neon Trees, definitely a band, an indie band for that matter. Maroon 5. I feel like there are maybe twice as many bands in 2010 as there are in 2020. And I don't think this goes, I'm not sure this goes back to 2000. It does not. If I look at like 2007 was the year I graduated high school. Show my age. You got Beyonce, Rihanna, Gwen Stefani, Fergie, T-Pain, Carrie Underwood. Plain White T's is the first band I see there. And Plain White T's is the only band in the top 10 of the Hot 100 in 2007. So that's the exact same amount of bands and kind of around the same spot. Plain White T's are 7. I think Maroon 5 was 8 in 2020. And if we look farther down, Akon, Avril Lavigne, Maroon 5. Shop Boys, that sounds like a collective, I think. Which kind of, it does complicate things because like you think about these hip hop groups and they do seem to be a little bit more collectives than a traditional rock band format, with some exceptions of course. So like, I don't really know where you put those because I don't think Adam's talking about that. Daughtry, I'm not going to count Daughtry as a band, sorry. Soulja Boy, I feel like that's a collective. Gym Class Heroes is a band. The Fray is a band. Fall Out Boy is a band. Nickelback's a band. Fall Out Boy is a band. Linkin Park is a band. So yeah, maybe not in the top 10. Maybe it's kind of stayed very similar in scope in the top 10. But I definitely feel like there are fewer bands filling out the rest of that Hot 100 than in years past. So do we think Adam Levine might have a point? I kind of think he does. But is the onus on the bands or is the onus on the labels for not signing or promoting the bands as much? Is it on the radio for not playing bands, for playing like solo artists? And there are a couple reasons I think that all of this might be like happening. I think it's harder to control a band of people and say like this is the kind of music you need to release. It's a tale as old as time, like kind of management or the label coming in to a band project, pulling out the front person being like, you're the real star here, and kind of breaking up the band. That happens a lot. It's easier to control one person than a group of people. It's also easy to ego bait one person compared to a group of people. So that, I think that's kind of one reason, and that sort of feeds into something else that we don't really talk about a lot, but like gossip magazines feed drama, and people are going to get mad at me for this. I think NASCAR is a soap opera. I think Formula One is as much, I think these events are as much soap operas as they are actual sporting events. And I feel that way kind of about the pop world sometimes. Like you get reclusive pop stars sometimes, but a lot of them it's like they're in the news. Katy Perry is feuding with Taylor Swift. Like Britney versus Christina. Like you see these individuals kind of paired up against each other and sort of battling each other. And it's like, it's gossip. It's a soap opera, and it keeps people's interest past the music part. And I do wonder if like that sort of is one of the reasons we're not seeing as many bands in the 10, 11 to 100 part of the top 100 right now, because it's a little bit harder to feed that kind of drama with an entire band. Like, is Eve 6 feuding with the guy from Third Eye Blind? Kind of. But again, those are like the front people that you're kind of making fight with each other. It's a little bit harder, and it's a little bit like it takes more effort to see a band and develop a personal relationship with them because you gotta learn who the members are. I don't know. I think there's a lot at play there psychologically, but you know, you also look at bands, especially like boy bands like the Beatles. That's gonna make somebody mad. And people can like pick out their favorite one, and that's popular. Like Backstreet Boys was the my boy band when I was growing up. I was a big Kevin Richardson fan. But, like, you could put your, like, almost mirror your personality with one of them. And, like, I like that one. But it takes a little bit more effort because you have to learn about the band. As we get older, we don't, like, learn the band members' names as much. We have a lot of other stuff going on. But yeah, I think that the guy from Maroon 5 has a point. I think that for whatever reason, and I don't think it's the band's faults, there aren't as many bands in the top 100. And we know it's not the fault of, like, guitar companies. I mean, how many times have you seen, like, an article about the decline of guitars in popular music? I think it was Wendy Melvoin from formerly The Revolution of, like, Prince and Wendy and Lisa. She made some comment, like she's gotten calls from, like, producers over the past, like, 20 years, 10 years, and more. She's like, I can't lay a guitar track down on this song because there's just not room for it, instrumentally speaking. So then you have another kind of side note where, like, what's big in pop music doesn't necessarily have room for, like, guitars and the traditional sort of band instrumentation. But then you listen to people like Lizzo, and then you're like, oh, there's definitely a very obvious guitar funk part in there because it's more retro. Even Beyonce tours with guitarists, plays with guitarists. But, you know, she can probably make more money being a solo act. So I don't really I think there's a lot of appeal in being a solo act. If you can, like, do it all, then you can do it all. I also think that being able to do it all makes a better and easier press story. Like, oh, they wrote all these songs top to bottom, or they're the star, just talk about them. So there's a lot at play there. And I think that it's just kind of making it harder. It's harder as a band to have that kind of story because no matter what, your publicist is going to focus on, like, the story is the principal songwriter. There have never been a ton of bands where everyone in the band wrote songs kind of on an equal place. I think, like, Queen is maybe the best ever example of that. I think that every person in that band wrote a top 10 hit. Of course, that was, you know, the 70s and the 80s, largely speaking. So I think that popularly speaking, bands were a bigger deal. But, you know, the music industry changes, it evolves, and things, you know, different things are in vogue right now. So who's not to say that in a couple years we're not going to be, like, championing bands again? Because if you look at, like, what's big in, like, indie right now, there are a ton of bands that are just kicking so much ass. Like, we have, like, Soccer Mommy and Charlie Bliss, Rat Boys, I think. We have Speedy Ortiz. Like, there are really a lot of bands out there doing great work and making great music. And I think it's kind of just, I hope that they all sort of, like, come into popularity, like, in the next couple of years. So it just, things ebb and flow. I think that you can't really put the nail in the coffin on having a band. I think especially as you're, like, coming up and coming into your own, even if you can do it all, like, you can learn a lot from being in a band. You can, like, there was a situation where I was sort of the hired gun for guitarist for a woman. She wanted to be, like, the Her Name band. And she was younger, and I was just kind of, like, walking her through, like, okay, this is kind of how this works, this is kind of how that works. So you're having different influences or just, like, experience levels, getting people together, I think, is where a lot of magic happens. And when you're younger, you don't have, like, as you get older as a solo artist, a lot of that, you'll probably have, like, more confidence to, like, have your own ideas and just kind of roll with them, or you'll have producers making suggestions instead of the band. Yeah, there's just, it's so much going on. I also was gonna pull up the list of Grammy nominees to see how many bands were nominated. Let's look at Record of the Year. Beyonce, Black Pumas, that's a band. The Baby, not a band. Doja Cat, I don't think a band. Billie Eilish, not a band. Dua Lipa, not a band. Post Malone, not a band. Megan Thee Stallion, not a band. So one band is nominated for Record of the Year. Let's look at Album of the Year. Black Pumas and Coldplay and Haim. So that's 3 bands nominated for Album of the Year. People are gonna be like, who cares about the Grammys? I do, shut up. Song of the Year. Beyonce. Okay, these are just the songwriters. I actually don't really know. Oh, there it is. Beyonce, Roddy Ricch, Taylor Swift, Post Malone, Dua Lipa, Billie Eilish, H.E. Her. No Song of the Year nominees for bands. Best New Artist. I don't know if any of those are bands. Pop. No bands. Pop Duo Performance. These are all duos. I think these are all duos. Like, none of these are not there's no groups in the group performance. Very nice. Traditional pop vocal album. Who cares? Pop vocal album. No bands. Dance electronic music. I wouldn't know. Contemporary instrument. Rock. It's Fiona Apple. Big Thief is a band. Haim is a band. 2 bands in Best Rock. Best Metal is Body Count. That's a band. I think those might all be bands. Yeah, I think those are all bands. So go metal. Best Rock Song. Tame Impala is a band. Big Thief is a band. So it's 2. Best Rock Album. Fontaine's DC, I think, is a band. And the Strokes are a band. So that's 2. So when you look at like the Hot 100, not a lot of bands. If you look at the Grammy nominees, that seems to lean more heavily into bands. So it's an interesting kind of breakdown. They're both, the Billboard Hot 100 and the Grammys are very different things. Billboard Hot 100 is based on streams, radio spends, purchases, and the Grammys are all nominated by people within the industry. So that doesn't lean as heavily into sales. So if you're looking at what people are playing on the radio, streaming, buying, that seems to sway away from bands. But if you look at what the musicians and the industry professionals are really favoring, it seems to be a more even split between bands and solo performers. And I kind of think that's where I'm going to end it. Does Adam Levine, why don't I know how to say his name? He's been famous since I was like 12. You think I would learn that by now, but I haven't. Sorry. That really got away from it there. But basically, obviously there are bands out there. I'm in one. Sunday Crush. Check us out. A real sensation out on Donut Sounds. Vinyl coming very soon. Featured on NPR. All songs considered. But just keep trucking. I really hope that bands kind of come back into the pop favor really soon. It's cyclical. It really seems to be cyclical. I think that to say that there's like a death in bands is premature. But just if you're in a band, keep doing your thing. If you're a solo performer, keep doing your thing. Don't really worry about what seems to be working. Just work on yourself, and if it connects with people, then you're gonna do okay. All right. Thanks for watching. Thanks for understanding. Please like, comment, subscribe below. Until next time, my name is Emily. Goodbye.